Thank you for joining us for the first episode in this series of studies of the book of the Revelation of John. We will now present the structure of this presentation. In the book of Revelation, we can find 5 distinct sections, of which 4 are different prophecies. We will present a total of 12 videos. The 12 videos will be structured as follows. The first video is the introduction video, which is this video. We will examine the 26 core imagery keywords, and explain how they were derived, using cross-referencing other biblical texts. The book of Revelation uses an incredible amount of imagery, of which most has a symbolic meaning. Once the symbolic meaning is decoded, then it becomes possible to understand its intended meaning. The same method of cross-referencing was developed by ancient Bible scholars, and it is still applied by many Christians in their own Bible studies. The second video will examine the prophecy of the 7 churches, as described in the first 3 chapters. It has a conditional prophecy for each church and its members, which we will examine in this video. The third video details the meaning of the 24 elders and the 4 beasts, which will be what we will find when we arrive in the hereafter. In the fourth video, we will examine the first 6 seals from the scroll, which only Jesus could open. It is the second prophecy, and it details 6 forces that controls our lives. The fifth video will be about the 7 trumpets from the 7th seal. It is the third prophecy, which is a complete end-time prophecy, which details 7 main events in the end time, with the 7th event detailing the return of Jesus. The fifth prophecy of Revelation from chapters 12 to chapter 22 will be presented in 7 videos. The sixth video examines chapter 12. It will be about the woman and the dragon. In video number 7, we will examine chapter 13, which are about the beast from the sea, and the beast from the earth. In the 8th video, we will examine chapter 14, which is about the 144,000 on Mount Zion, the destruction of the second Babylon, and the trampling of the winepress. In the 9th video, we will examine chapters 15 through 17, which is about the 7 plagues, the fall of Babylon, and the scarlet beast. In the 10th video, we will examine chapter 18, and we will do a full analysis of who or what Babylon and the scarlet beast are. In the 11th video, we will examine chapters 19 and 20, which will be about the battle of Jesus against the forces in the spiritual realm, and the millennial reign of Jesus. The 12th video, which is the last video, will examine chapters 21 and 22, which will be about the New Jerusalem, the new heaven, and the new earth. We will now look at where imagery and symbolism are used in different kind of prophecies, as well as parables. The first category of prophecy is personal prophecy. This category of prophecy will normally have no imagery, but it may have some symbolism. It may be a promise from God to a specific person, but usually it will be a warning of punishment, and it may be conditional or unconditional. Our first example is God's promise to Abraham. God promises Abraham that he will become the father of God's chosen nation. This was an unconditional prophecy, which can be found in Genesis chapter 15 verses 4 to 6. Our second example is a prophecy that was directed against King Ahab by the prophet Elijah. Ahab committed many evils which were deliberately meant to anger God. This can be found in 1 Kings chapter 21. This is where the prophet Elijah found King Ahab, to give him the message from God that he will be punished. The next category of prophecy is prophetic dreams. Our first example of a prophetic dream is that Joseph, the son of Jacob, had a dream, where his parents and brothers bowed before him, as if he were a king. This was an unconditional prophecy, which can be found in Genesis 37 verses 9 to 11. This dream became true, when Joseph was promoted to the Pharaoh's vizier. The second example of a prophetic dream was that Pharaoh dreamt a dream that upset him. He dreamt about 7 fat cows and 7 skinny cows, in which the 7 skinny cows ate the 7 fat cows, and still stayed skinny. The next category of prophecy is national prophecies. The first subcategory of a national prophecy is near-future prophecies. It normally is a conditional prophecy for the near future. This is normally a warning from God to repent, and if they listen, then God will not bring his wrath over the nation. Our first example of a near-future prophecy is in the book of Jonah. Jonah had to prophesy against the city of Nineveh, that God was going to destroy the city in 40 days if they did not repent. This was thus a conditional prophecy. The king and the people listened to Jonah, and they believed God, and they repented. The book of Jonah described that God turned his wrath away from Nineveh, because they repented. The second example of a national near-future prophecy is when the prophet Jeremiah prophesies against Israel. This is found in Jeremiah 11 verses 6 to 9. The next type of national prophecy is an unconditional prophecy for the far future. Our first example is a prophecy by Daniel, where he prophesied the nature of the Babylonian Empire, and the rise of the Persian, Greece and Roman empires. This is found in Daniel 7. Our next example of a far future national prophecy is by Isaiah. He prophesies the destruction and the restoration of Egypt. It is found in Isaiah 19 verses 22 to 23. The prophecy became true, and Egypt was destroyed in the near future, and more than 300 years later restored. The third last category of prophecy is the messianic prophecies. These prophecies all predicted the first coming of Jesus. Our first example can be found in Isaiah 53 verses 3 to 6, where he predicted that Jesus would carry the wrath of God for our sins. Our second example is where Micah prophesied that Jesus would be born in Bethlehem. This is found in Micah 5 verse 2. We will also look for the usage of symbolism in parables, which is seen by most as lessons, rather than prophecies. The symbolism used in parables is also valid for use to interpret the book of Revelation. Our first example of a parable is that of the mustard seed. It is found in Matthew 13 verses 31 and 32. Our second example is the parable of the precious pearl, in Matthew 13 verses 45 and 46. The last category of prophecy is end-time prophecy. In our first example, Jesus prophesies his return. This is found in Matthew 24 verse 27. In the second example, Peter prophesies the destruction of heaven and earth. This is found in 2 Peter 3 verse 10. We will also derive any imagery or symbolism from any other teachings from prophets, apostles, or even from Jesus himself, where symbolism or imagery was used. The book of Revelation is also an end-time prophecy. We will cross-reference most of the imagery and symbolism to prophecies and parables, to interpret the imagery. We will now examine a list of 26 core imagery keywords and phrases, which were used to create this interpretation of the Revelation. Most of our core imagery keywords were found by the cross-referencing of the rest of the Bible. The first key phrase is the sun, moon and stars. For example, the combination of sun, moon and stars are mentioned 4 times in the book of Revelation, in chapters 6, 8, 12, and 21. We found the meaning of the sun, moon and stars in the book of Genesis, chapter 37 verses 9 to 10. The context of these verses was that Joseph, the son of Jacob, had a dream. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and, behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father, and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? Jacob interpreted the dream, that the sun was himself, the moon the mother of Joseph, and the 11 stars were the brothers of Joseph. The dream used imagery, and it was a prophetic dream, and therefore we will interpret the meaning of the sun, moon and stars, as the nation of Israel. The next key word is the sun. In the book of Revelation, the sun is mentioned 7 times without the moon and stars. The meaning of the sun in this interpretation is righteousness. We can derive this from Matthew 13 verse 43. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. We will use the meaning of the sun as righteousness for this interpretation. We also find references to the word star, or stars, without the sun. Stars are an imagery keyword for angels. This can be found in Revelation 1 verse 20. The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches. We will use the day-year principle, in which a day in prophecy represents a year. In Numbers 14 verse 34 we read, After the number of the days in which ye searched the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. In this verse, we can see that in this prophecy, that God would punish the Israelites a year for each day of sin, and that this prophecy was fulfilled in this way. In Ezekiel 4 verse 6 we read, And when thou hast accomplished them, lie again on thy right side, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have appointed thee each day for a year. Here we can see again that a day in prophecy really means a year, and that this prophecy was also fulfilled in this way. An hour can be calculated as 360 days divided by 24, because we have 24 hours in a day, and a prophetical day has a total of 360 days. This gives us a total of 15 days, in a prophetical hour. A prophetical year will be 360 years. This is because a year has 360 days, and each day symbolizes 1 year. In national prophecy, God always speaks to a country, a state, a city, a nation, or a church, as if it is a person. Some examples can be found in the following verses. The second book of Kings, chapter 19, verse 21. This is the word that the Lord hath spoken concerning him. The virgin, the daughter of Zion hath despised thee, and laughed thee to scorn. The daughter of Jerusalem hath shaken her head at thee. We can see here that God speaks to Sennacherib, king of the Assyrians. He speaks about the nation of Israel, as the daughter of Jerusalem. This symbolizes the nation of Israel, as the daughter of Jerusalem. The book of Matthew 2 verse 6. And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor, that shall rule my people Israel. Here God speaks to the town of Bethlehem, as if it were a person. Jeremiah chapter 2 verses 1 to 2. Moreover the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Go and cry in the ears of Jerusalem, saying, Thus saith the Lord, I remember thee, the kindness of thy youth, the love of thine espousals, when thou wentest after me in the wilderness, in a land that was not sown. Here God gives the city of Jerusalem and the nation of Israel the attributes of a person. Revelation 3 verses 15 to 16. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then because thou art lukewarm, and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Here Jesus speaks to the church of Laodicea, as if it were a person. In Revelation 19 verse 20, we read, And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. Verse 20 provides a clue that a person in Revelation will not be an actual person, but actually an entity. In the prophecies of Daniel, a beast has always been an empire as explained by Gabriel in chapter 8. This means that the false prophet will be like the beast, in fact also not be a person, but an entity. Because far future national prophecy follows the pattern, that a person represents an entity, who could be a country or state, or a city, a nation, or a church, we are certain that the same is true in end-time prophecy. Because a person is a country, state, nation or church, we will conclude that the meaning of a city in end-time prophecy is, that it symbolizes a container or union of entities like countries, states, nations, or churches. A beast in far future or end-time prophecy symbolizes an empire, or civilization. This is found in Daniel 7 verses 3 to 7. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. We know today, that these 4 beasts, represents the empires of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. Each of these empires, were also a civilization in own right. Therefore, we will interpret the word beast, either as an empire, or a civilization. We will assume in end-time prophecy, that an earthquake symbolizes a major upheaval, or disruption of people's lives. We will derive this from the following 2 verses. In Ezekiel 38 verse 19 we read, For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken, surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel. We can see that God will shake the earth, or disrupt people's lives when he punishes them. In Isaiah 29 verse 6 we read, Thou shalt be visited of the Lord of hosts with thunder, and with earthquake, and great noise, with storm and tempest, and the flame of devouring fire. This also confirms to us that an earthquake is a major disruption of people's lives, and that it is more severe when mixed with other elements like thunder, lightning and fire. We will now examine the two keywords earth and sea. To understand the meaning of earth and sea, we will first look at a modern map of northern Africa, Europe and the Middle East. This map was produced by Google Earth. We will first examine Isaiah 24 verse 1. Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. This was a prophecy against the land of Israel, and other nations around Israel, and this territory is referred to in this prophecy as the earth. We will mark the country of Israel in a green rectangle, which in prophecy is a country in the earth. We will next examine Daniel 7 from verse 3 to verse 7. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. We have already read verses 4 to 7, and we already know that the 4 beasts represents the empires of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. The first beast was the empire of Babylon, which is modern-day Iraq. We will mark Iraq as well as other countries from the sea, in red. The second beast from the sea was the Medo-Persian Empire, which is modern-day Iran. The third beast from the sea was the Greek Empire. The fourth beast from the sea was the Roman Empire, which was in modern-day Italy. We will now draw a straight line through the south of Italy, and through the north of Israel, which is the country from the earth. For this interpretation, it is believed that the earth represents all land below the line. This is the continent of Africa. We also believe that the sea are the lands above this line. The sea thus symbolizes Europe and the Middle East. In end-time prophecy, we will assume that trees symbolize people. We can derive this from reading Luke chapter 3 verse 9. And now also the axe is laid unto the root of the trees, every tree therefore which bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down, and cast into the fire. We believe that grass symbolizes living beings, possibly all animals and plants belonging to people. We can find this in Peter 1 verse 24. For all flesh is as grass, and all the glory of man as the flower of grass. The grass withereth, and the flower thereof falleth away. Ships symbolizes economies of countries. This can be derived from Isaiah 60 verse 9. Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of the Lord thy God, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee. The rivers and fountains of water symbolizes Asia. In Revelation 8 verse 10 we read, And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. Because there are no other clear references to rivers and fountains of waters used in the Bible, this will be examined in Part 5, when we examine the 7 trumpets. As a result, we have extrapolated this meaning from historical events, that the rivers and fountains of water represents the continent of Asia. The bottomless pit symbolizes the oblivion of an empire or civilization. It means that the empire or civilization is gone, and only exists in memory. An example is, that the Roman Empire is now in the bottomless pit. This can be found in Revelation 17 verse 8. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. The Euphrates River symbolizes the natural border between west and east. We can derive this from Deuteronomy 11 verse 24, where God assigned the land of Canaan to Israel. Every place whereon the soles of your feet shall tread shall be yours, from the wilderness and Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, even unto the uttermost sea shall your coast be. The Euphrates was the eastern border of Israel, and the countries east of Israel were regarded as countries of the east. Therefore, we believe that the Euphrates symbolizes the natural border between east and west. A head in almost any symbolism in the Bible symbolizes a government, or a ruling class of people. This can be derived from Genesis 49 verse 26. The blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. In Isaiah 3 verse 17, we read, Therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. Here we derive, that because the head carries the crown, that the head symbolizes the government. The tail symbolizes false prophets. In Isaiah 9 verse 15 we read, The ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail. Because prophets acted as advisors, the tail can also be advisors or teachers, who provides poor advice or counseling, based on lies. An olive tree symbolizes non-Jewish Christians. We can find this from Romans chapter 11 verses 17 and 24. Verse 17. And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou, being a wild olive tree, wert grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and fatness of the olive tree. Verse 24. For if thou wert cut out of the olive tree which is wild by nature, and wert grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? Here Paul wrote to the church of Romans, who were non-Jewish Christians. A candlestick symbolizes a church. This can be found in Revelation 1 verse 20. The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest, are the 7 churches. The dragon symbolizes Satan. We can find this in Revelation 20 verse 2. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil, and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. A wilderness symbolizes a strange country, or another country. We can find an example in Isaiah 23 verse 13. Behold the land of the Chaldeans, this people was not, till the Assyrian founded it for them that dwell in the wilderness. They set up the towers thereof, they raised up the palaces thereof, and he brought it to ruin. We can derive from this verse, that people dwelling in the wilderness were people from other strange and unknown countries, who were all united in Babylon. The right hand means the systems of laws, or a country's judicial system. We can derive this from the fact that Jesus will sit on the right hand of God, and that he will be our judge. This can be confirmed from the following 2 verses. In Matthew 26 verse 64, we read, Jesus saith unto him, Thou hast said, Nevertheless I say unto you, Hereafter shall ye see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power, and coming in the clouds of heaven. In 2 Timothy 4 verse 1 we read, I charge thee therefore before God, and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing in his kingdom. Because Jesus is on the right hand of God and he is the judge, we know that the right hand represents laws and enforcement, therefore the system of laws and a country's judicial system. In both national and end-time prophecy, a mountain symbolizes a major governing principle of a leading empire or civilization. In Isaiah 2 verse 2, we read, And it shall come to pass in the last days, that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. The mountain of the Lord symbolizes the governing principle for God's people, who will be Jesus. We can say this, because this will be in the last days. The worship of Jesus will be a higher governing principle than all others, because it will be established on the top of the mountains, which symbolizes all other governing principles. We will now read Jeremiah 51 verse 25. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord, which destroyest all the earth, and I will stretch out mine hand upon thee, and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burnt mountain. We have concluded that this mountain that was prophesied against in this verse, was the governing principle of Babylon, which was the migration of highly skilled people into the empire of Babylon. They left only low-skilled poor people behind in many countries, which destroyed those countries. In this prophecy Babylon will be destroyed and along with it the migration principle, which will cause people to stop migrating to Babylon. This concludes the list of our core imagery keywords for this interpretation. We will now explain the method of creating this interpretation. To create this interpretation, we started with reading the entire Revelation and memorizing the sequence of events on a high level. For example, the 7 churches, the 24 elders and the 4 beasts, the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets from the 7th seal, and so on. The entire book of Revelation is a lot to memorize, so we created a comprehensive picture of the main imagery of the entire book of Revelation. This picture may seem busy, but it was critically needed to develop an understanding of the book of Revelation. Because there is so much imagery, it was not possible to have a picture of every described image, but it contains most of the imagery used in the Revelation. We will then assume the chronologies as it makes sense at this time. Once we have a complete picture, we can classify sets of imagery as either events or forces, and then assume some chronologies for events. For example, if the 6 seals are events, then they should be chronological. We can also assume the same for the 7 trumpets, if they are events. This will not be set in stone, and we can still change our minds if we find that a set of imagery descriptions appears not to be what we originally thought they should be. For example, we later determined that the first 6 seals all symbolize forces, and not events. Once we made those initial determinations, we will then read and analyze every context, to determine if it symbolizes an event or description, after which we will classify it. The final step was to create the final narrative, which is this set of videos. We will now list the steps of analyzing a context. We started from chapter 1 verse 1, and read every context. Sometimes a verse will be a context, sometimes a paragraph will be a context, or sometimes a set of paragraphs may be an entire context. We will now provide an example, as taken from Revelation 9 verses 2 and 3. And he opened the bottomless pit, And there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. We will now identify all imagery symbolisms in these two verses. We will either refer back to Scripture to interpret those, or we will refer to our list of imagery keywords. The first symbolism is bottomless pit. This symbolizes oblivion, mostly for empires, or civilizations. Once an empire or civilization is destroyed, for example the Empire of Rome, then it is in the bottomless pit. This was explained in the examination of the imagery keywords. The second symbolism is the smoke that darkens the sun. The sun symbolizes righteousness, which is also explained in the imagery keywords. We can derive that righteousness will disappear like the sun, that was darkened by the smoke. The third symbolism is locusts. Because these locusts come from the smoke from the bottomless pit of fallen empires, we can derive that they are actually people from fallen empires, who are not part of an existing empire. The fourth symbolism is earth. Earth symbolizes Africa, and is also explained in the imagery keywords. The fifth symbolism is scorpions. We will simply refer to the nature of scorpions, which inflicts pain and discomfort when it stings us. We will now interpret all that we have, for the entire context of these two verses. We can derive from all this information, that people from a fallen empire, or empires in Africa, will experience major injustices in their own countries, and then will stream into other countries. Because they have power like scorpions of the earth have power, we can derive that they will cause pain and discomfort to the people of the countries that they will occupy, which may possibly be disruptions caused by anarchy and chaos. After we have interpreted the meaning of the symbolisms, we can categorize it as an event or as a description, which could describe a force, a structure or anything else. In this case, it was categorized as an event. We will compare it to events in the past, the current and the future to find the best fit. The event of these two verses fits a very recent situation, in which many refugees are fleeing from less developed countries in Africa and migrating to more developed countries all over the world. These refugees from less developed countries are mostly descendants of the people of the Kingdom of Kush or the Ottoman Empire, which are both now in oblivion, and they are not part of any existing empire or specific civilization. Their countries were ravaged with war and injustice, causing them to flee. Recent open border policies made it easy for these refugees to migrate into better developed countries, where they believe that they can have a better life for themselves and their families. However, they bring massive strain, disruption and chaos to the communities who accept them. The next step is to fit the event into a timeline. If the context is not an event that makes any sense, then we will classify it as a description. We will then identify the description, and add it to a list of descriptions. Most descriptions are identified as demonic forces. This will all be used to create the final narrative. This concludes an overview of the main procedure that we have used to have interpreted the entire book of Revelation, and how we created this set of videos. This completes the introduction to the book of Revelation. We hope that you will consider watching our next video, which will examine the first 3 chapters of Revelation, which is the prophecy of the 7 churches. We thank you for watching this video.